or moonlighting, basically being paid to do two jobs at the same time, both of them very badly. Do you think people are more worried about that, like their taxes, their bills, and actually that's more of an issue than world affairs?
Well, three big stories today. I tell you what, the one the public will be most interested in is the royal family. They always are, despite your Republican tendencies, Julia, and nothing will change on that. The one that will change how they vote is migration. Unless the Tory party gets serious about that very quickly, there is going to be a disaster coming. The one that's going to impact them the most is what's going on in the Middle East, because we have seen time and time again events on the world stage, particularly when they're in places like Ukraine, which obviously has a big role in the global gas network, and the Middle East, which has a big role in the global oil network. All of these things are what is driving inflation so much at the moment. And what does inflation mean? Well, bills go up. And that links, of course, back to the fourth story, because now we have to pay for the heating bills of council staff working from home.
Not just our own, which we can't afford.
We'll pay for that too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? And again, a lot of this all ties in also to the issue people have with the number of migrants coming to the country, particularly when they're not net contributors, which if you're earning well below average income, 25,000, roughly 25, 26,000 being the salary threshold, yes, you may be doing fantastic work as a carer. Thank you very much and everything. But at the end of the day, your needs for housing, subsidised rent, your ability to spend in the economy, your need for your children to go to school, your healthcare needs, all of those, you're not a net contributor to this country's national domestic product. You get into that territory where we, on average, get poorer, as we are, although, the person running the care home who's able to have cheaper labour because they don't have to put the prices up to get domestic labour, they're doing fine, and other big businesses as well. But then also you do see the rise in xenophobia. This is a common thing. It's happened every time that countries get poorer and people are struggling. You see a rise in, well, again, people have talked for many, many years about the rise in, say, anti-Muslim feeling, anti-black feeling, anti-Asian, so any sort of minority. And this time, it's anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and look, the simple truth is, and I make no apology for saying this, there are two potential costs with migration. One is economic, and we certainly see that. But there is, when managed badly, a cultural cost. Countries are capable of assimilating, integrating relatively big numbers of people from overseas.
The melting pot of America, they have made this their shtick. We are they are a nation founded on immigration.
But only so much and only so fast, and only when it's managed as a proper process. And we saw years ago there was the Casey review that looked into this and said, right, well, first up, you've got to make sure everyone's speaking English. You've got to make sure that you aren't having these awful so-called community leaders and groups that are actually teaching horrendous things. All of her recommendations pretty much were ignored. They didn't happen. And now...
She wasn't the first to say it.
Wasn't the first to say it, won't be the last. And now I see these scenes of rival marchers on the streets of the capital, one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday, in which on the one side you are frankly seeing Jew hate, the other side saying no to Jew hate. And that is a cost, actually, of not dealing with the
But this is the thing,
that you need.
they are very different marches. I mean, people were saying to me, you and I were both on the Solidarity Against Anti-Semitism march yesterday, organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. And people were saying to me, well, did you go on a pro-Palestinian march? And well, no, because that's a foreign policy march. I didn't go on that march, no, because I don't like a lot of the people on the march for a start. But also, I think that, hey, if I wanted to go on a pro-Palestinian march, I go on an anti-Hamas march, because the best thing you could do for the people of Palestine, or the Palestinian people living in Gaza, anyway, would be to get rid of Hamas, which is something what the Israeli government's trying to do. So, but absolutely, I'm 100% as concerned as any decent-minded person should be about innocent civilians in Gaza being bombed and losing their lives, particularly children. Anyone who's not concerned about that, frankly, is an animal. It's as simple as that. However, Israel's right to self-defence, and all those other issues. But the march against anti-Semitism yesterday was really simple. It was a march against racism. I spoke to Boris Johnson at that march. He was there with his wife Carrie and their, I was going to say their latest baby. I don't know. They're on about. I know there are a lot of them. There are a third. I don't know. There are a lot of them. And there were various other politicians. And you mentioned listening to Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister. At the Home Office, who spoke very powerfully on this issue, and a few others. But really, in terms of frontline, The Rishi Sunaks, the Keir Starmers, the Ed David, you know, I mean, to be fair, Reform UK's Richard Tyson was there, but, you know, they weren't there. You know, they weren't there. And I wonder, like, people, and the BBC were telling people, you know, their staff, you shouldn't be at this march, you know, it's a controversial political march. It shouldn't be controversial to march against anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and let's be clear why this march is necessary. It's because the majority of Jews in this country feel unsafe about coming into central London on a weekend. Yeah. That's a disgrace. It's our world. The time for never again is now, and never again it includes making Jews feel comfortable to live in the city that they do.
Absolutely.